The footage you're seeing on screen is of me level farming in Payday 3. This might seem weird to you, because if you know this level, then you know I haven't even triggered the first objective. For the rest of you who are unaware, this is chronologically the last heist of Payday 3, called Touch the Sky. In this level, you infiltrate a penthouse to steal an SSD from a locked off room. Right after entering the penthouse, you're expected to find the master bedroom, which is usually simple enough since it seems to spawn in the same place every time. In the route I'm doing, however, we skip all of that. In fact, when farming this heist for levels, we skip everything, even the success. We run right here into the bathroom and just kill enemies over and over again. When you're done or bored with this, you walk out and let enemies do what they will, then cash out on all the XP you gain from challenges. Listening to this, you're probably wondering what would compel a human being to engage in such behavior, so let's take it back a bit. Payday 3 is a video game, no shit, and in video games you're usually expected to perform a gameplay loop in order to accomplish just about anything. Gameplay loops usually tie into a form of progression. You complete this action that's a part of the loop, and then you move further through the game. For simpler games, this will usually be only physically. In a Call of Duty, for example, you shoot enough guys as part of the shooting guys loop, then the game moves forward. The problem with Payday 3's gameplay loop is that it's disconnected to most forms of the game's progression. By completing a mission in-game, you earn only one thing, and that's money. Money is necessary in the early game because it's limited, and the only thing to buy weapons and attachments for those weapons. But at a certain point, this stops being the case. You require other resources to move forward in other areas. Payday 2 had a solution for this problem. By completing a level in Payday 2, you'll gain XP based on the difficulty you're playing on and the heist you're playing on. This means you're always actively rewarded for completing levels in the game. Even if you don't care about money, there are reasons to play Payday 2 levels, and especially reasons to play them on higher difficulties. Unfortunately, the decision was made for XP to be gained only through challenges in Payday 3, and very little scales based on difficulty. So now we go back to the bathroom footage from earlier. While the most efficient methods to gain levels were directly tied into Payday 2's gameplay loop, Payday 3 has it exist off in its own little world, where the method to win the game isn't to steal things, it's to kill, and then die, and then slide a mile with something stupid. There's another important game I haven't been talking about here though, and that's the first Payday game. Payday 3 has advertised itself as being like Payday the Heist in more ways than one. A grittier setting set in New York in a smaller scale with higher difficulty, and then there's that challenge system. Payday the Heist also includes challenges, but also includes the same XP system as Payday 2. When playing, you're encouraged to do challenges, and more often than not, they'll proc naturally during gameplay, but you're never forced to do them to progress. Don't get me wrong, you can game the system if you want. It's actually not a bad idea to farm weapon kills with bad weapons in Payday the Heist, but the difference here is that this kind of play never overtakes casual fun. You don't need to do it. After you unlock all of Payday 3's common challenges, there is no casual fun left. You just simply stop leveling up. Sure, you can replay heists for money, but there's always a creeping thought in the back of your head that this is really all for nothing. Every time you play a heist for money, it's essentially a waste of time, because what you really need to be doing is looking at your challenge list and hammering them out. Maybe you need to farm another heist for weapon levels, and hey, aren't I technically earning money more effectively doing this too? For people as statistics-brained as I am, this is torture. The game invites this sort of thinking with one flawed aspect of progression, and the rest of the castle comes crashing down. At a certain point, you stop playing for fun, and you start playing to make that one number go up when it needs to. There is still a lot I haven't mentioned here, so let me briefly skim through it all. Weapon levels suck because they don't depend on actual use of a weapon. The most effective way to level up a gun isn't to kill people with it. It's to rush the jewelry store or nightclub heist while the weapon model stays on your screen. I feel like this was done to benefit stealth players, but it only harms everyone else in the end. I'm not a fan of this system in other ways too, since it arbitrarily locks off weapon mods for no reason. A silencer that might be available from a low level for one gun might be a high level mod that costs C-stacks for another. There's very little rhyme or reason for the way any of this is done, and attachments themselves feel like they have very little effect in most situations. Why would I spend C-stacks on this attachment that's worse than the one I got at a lower level? Wait, it's not worse? There's time for this mess later. Since I mentioned C-stacks though, why don't we briefly go over them too? The intention here seems to be a money sink, basically a way to ensure you always have something to spend money on. But when it comes to the things you get with C-stacks, their implementation feels incredibly lopsided. I could spend 300 C-stacks on this pair of gloves, something that'd take me actual real-life days to farm the money for, or I could spend 50 on a weapon mod with unique benefits. I could also spend 300 C-stacks on this stupid weapon charm that nobody will ever see and also looks stupid, or I could just not. It doesn't feel like they've done a particularly good job at balancing the worth of C-stacks. Cosmetic recolors shouldn't be worth so much, while the weapon mod should be good enough to warrant their worth. As I said before, I can spend C-stacks on a weapon mod that's nearly identical to another mod, but with more negative effects. Why would anyone ever do that unless they were just out of things to spend money on? Everything about the in-game economy feels rough. It doesn't feel like there's been much consideration for how much things should be worth, so you end up with a system where you feel like you have too much money for everything, with nothing reasonable to spend your C-stacks on. In the end, the only element of the progression system with any power is your level. Since it determines exactly when you can use a weapon, getting to that specific level you need feels much better than hitting the threshold of buying a garbage C-stack item. It'd be very easy for me to just end the video off like this, but I want to present changes that I think would make the progression system much better. To start is the one that everybody wants. Add heist XP, but don't just add heist XP, make it based on the things that you actually do in heists. Not everyone knows this, but aside from the base XP a heist can give in Payday 2, there's a lot more to give you additional XP. Bags, for example, are worth XP alongside their money values. Sometimes you'll get bonus XP on top of that for every bag in a heist. There's also frequently bonuses for doing optional objectives. Sometimes it's just completely hidden. Like, for example, in Hoxton Breakout Day 2, if you avoid using keycards for the entirety of the heist, you get an additional 4,000 base XP. This is a repeatable, secret objective that you can do as a challenge every time you replay the heist. If this was in Payday 3, it'd be a random challenge the game tells you about that is only doable once, before you never have a reason to do it again in a mission. Of course, if this was all added to the game, it should scale based on difficulty. The current challenges have a problem where you're not really encouraged to go to the higher difficulties unless you do specific strats that game the system. Since we'd definitely be getting faster leveling from this, I propose another change. I think we should be getting significantly less money than we currently are, or things that cost money should be more expensive. For a heist like Road Rage, you can get a guaranteed $1 million plus for every heist completion. Aside from the preset weapons that cost a ridiculous amount for basically no reason, that gives you enough money to get anything you want in a particular moment. Any weapon, any attachment, any outfit, it does not matter. For me, money has already reached that point where it's worthless. This shouldn't be a thing. Money should be a limiting factor just as much as your level. Anyway, I think the gameplay part of this game is really solid, great fun, but as I'm sure you've heard people say by now, everything else has been a bit of a mess. And I think Starbreeze's decision to continue adding onto the gameplay right now is a little questionable, since there are much more pressing things to focus on. Guys, we really don't need to carry 2 bags right now. I'm already completing the jewelry store in like 3 minutes. I don't need to be doing this any faster. I want you to fix the progression so I don't have to do this. Oh wait, they don't hear me. Yes, I'll keep doing it then.
Melts with the ice storm of waning machines. Hold for a moment when the makers share a hint of care. Color be gone.